Hello and welcome to this application. My name is Kutemwa Masafwa and I'm an international student at Xavier University of Louisiana in New Orleans. So today, as you have seen from the title of this video, we'll be answering the burning question, should you take the SAT in 2022? So firstly, the reason that this is even a question is that most schools stopped requiring the SAT in 2020, so they became test optional, and this was mostly because of COVID-19. So in some countries, it was impossible to take the SAT, so just to have a level playing field for all applicants across the world, most schools waived that requirement of the SAT. And so most schools decided to just make it permanently test optional, and then some of them decided to waive that requirement just for 2 to 3 years, just until COVID-19 passes. And so that's the first thing that should make you take the SAT if one of your schools requires it. And as you do your research, you have to make sure that you check specifically for 2022, because as I mentioned, some of them only waived it for a certain number of years. MIT is one of them. So even though it was waived for the past 2 years, those who are applying in 2022 will need to submit the SAT. So you need to make sure that you do your research and find out if your school still requires the SAT. So what if all your schools have gone test optional for 2022? Should you still consider taking the SAT? So I'm going to raise 3 points, and the first is, think of why the SAT is even a thing to begin with. Why do colleges want to see SAT scores? So the SAT is meant to be a college readiness test. It's meant to show how ready you are for the academic rigor of college. And it's able to do this because the way it's structured is very similar to certain college courses. And so if you're able to do well on the SAT, chances are you also do well in college. And of course, schools want people who are going to do well in their college. So this adds points for your academic strengths and gives you a higher chance of getting admitted. So the thing is that if you choose not to submit SAT scores, other parts of your application end up playing a bigger role in whether you get admitted or not. Things like your GPA, your extracurriculars, your essays, and so on. So it would be particularly important that you take the SAT if you don't have a very high GPA or if you don't have very strong extracurriculars. But even if you do, who wouldn't want an extra boost in the application? And that takes us to the second point. It adds an extra element to your application that some other applications will not have. So it's very important that you stand out, especially as an international student, because the truth is we have a much lower acceptance rate. So it's very important that your application is as unique as it can be, and the SAT can become a major part of that, especially if you want to apply for a scholarship or a special program and so on. So the third point I only found out after I came here, but because of me taking the SAT and the scores that I had, I didn't have to take 2 college courses, which saved me a lot of time. So one of them was a pre-calculus class and the other one was an English composition class. So because that's covered in the SAT and I did well on the SAT, I didn't have to take those classes, and that saved me a lot of time. So I'm way ahead of my course schedule, and it turns out I can actually finish a semester before I was supposed to finish. Anyway, the point is that you can actually get out of taking certain college courses at certain universities if you take the SAT, and so that's obviously something good, right? You end up saving time that you would have spent taking those courses. And then the bonus is, even if you don't get college credit for taking the SAT, it actually does prepare you for college. Just the way it's structured and the topics that are covered, you actually meet them when you come here. So it's actually a good thing. You'll be more ready for college than you were after completing high school. So in case you are wondering what my answer to the question is, it is a very strong yes. I believe you should take the SAT, but I understand that the SAT is not free and it might be a financial burden on your family for you to take it. So if you're not able to take it, just make sure that you strengthen the rest of your application, because as I mentioned, those parts will be magnified and they'll end up playing a bigger role in whether you get accepted or not. And I remember when I was applying and it was test optional for most schools, whenever I say no, whenever I choose no, it would ask for like an additional essay or something. So just make sure that you really do your best in the rest of your application so that you still stand out. So I know that there are a lot of misconceptions about the SAT, and some people think that it's too hard, that's why they don't want to write it. But quote me on this, the SAT is not hard. It just has its own rules, and for me it was very different from the high school syllabus that I was taking. So I had to learn all the rules and basically you have to learn the SAT, you have to learn all the specific rules and the specific ways that it's outlined. And I actually have a series on the SAT if you do decide to take the SAT. But this is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, and don't forget to also share this video if you know someone who would be in need or interested in the contents of it. Thank you.